In this tutorial, we will discuss what Mathcad is, why it is useful, and where you can find it available for use at WPI. We will also show some very basic examples to get you started using it and point out where to go for help when needed. This is the first in a series of tutorials showing Mathcad applications of interest to chemical engineering students. Mathcad is an engineering calculation software program that can be thought of as an advanced graphing calculator that lets you document, print, save, and reuse your work. One of the strongest attributes of Mathcad is that mathematical equations using standard math notation like you would write on paper can be solved and combined with text and graphics to document the work. It can be used for calculations in homework and project work, and also to plot, explain, and present the results. It is relatively straightforward to use for calculus and differential equations, as well as algebraic equations. It can even be used for solving equations symbolically, and is especially useful for solving simultaneous equations. In many cases, but certainly not all cases, Mathcad is a better choice than Excel for computational work. If you save your worksheets, lengthy calculations and homework solutions can be reused and modified as needed for future homework and project work. Mathcad is available on the WPI computer network and is installed on many machines in computer labs around campus. On an on-campus machine, you should be able to access Mathcad by going to the Start menu, then All Programs, then Academic Software, then Mathcad, and clicking on Mathcad 15 to open the file. You may also be able to install Mathcad on your own machine that's connected to the WPI network by going through the Computing and Communications Center website. For example, you would go to Services, then Software, then Network Software, then Mathcad to find instructions on how to install Mathcad on your machine. Please consult the CCC or one of your computer-savvy classmates for help with this if needed. Now let's look at some simple calculations to illustrate some basic functionality of Mathcad. You can use the standard plus, minus, multiply, divide, and equals keys to do simple calculations. For example, 5 divided by 9 equals, or 7 times 7 equals. You should note that this equals sign is obtained by typing the equals using the key with plus and equals on the keyboard. On the other hand, if you want to define a variable, for example, a is equal to 5, you type the colon key instead of the equals key, and you get this colon equals sign. This represents the defining of the variable a to be equal to the number 5. This way you can do manipulations with variables. For example, if I set b is equal to 7 and then define an expression for c is equal to a plus b, and then simply ask what c is equal to by typing c equals using the equal sign, I get 12. Mathcad solved the problem. This is particularly useful if you want to redo the calculation with different numbers. Simply changing the 5 to 50, for example, will change the value of c to 57. You should note that Mathcad works from left to right and then top to bottom. Therefore, if the value of a is needed in defining or calculating the value of c, then a must be defined above or to the left of c. You should also note that this line, representing a divider between pages that would be printed on different sheets of paper if you printed this out, does not affect the order of calculations in going from left to right and then top to bottom. Therefore, it can get confusing because calculations on this page are affected by calculations on this page. I usually just avoid this region and continue my calculations below the previous ones instead of moving to this over to this right hand side page. Now suppose we want to use the Greek symbol alpha rather than A for our expression. We could go to the toolbars, view toolbars, and find the Greek toolbar, and then wherever we want to put alpha we set our cursor and click on alpha and then define that as equal to 50, for example. I only mention this now to point out that there are several useful toolbars that you should know how to find. For example, graphing, calculus, matrix, etc. that will be useful in doing calculations in chemical engineering. These will be discussed further in future tutorials. Another important thing to know is the difference between a math region and a text region. If you go to Insert, you can notice that there's math regions and there's text regions, and you can toggle between math and text on the Insert menu, or you can just simply distinguish between text and math by the way you initially type when you enter information. I'll show that here by way of example. If I wanted to define a variable Kelvin, I would type Kelvin and then the colon symbol to define Kelvin is equal to some number, 273.15, for example. On the other hand, if I type Kelvin and then a space, Mathcad will convert this from math mode to text mode and set up just a text as a comment. For example, Kelvin is the temperature scale being used. So this is just a comment using a text region. Another important feature of Mathcad is that it can work with and convert units. You can consult the help menu and learn more about this if you'd like, but I often find that using units within the math region is more trouble than it's worth. I usually just keep track of units on my own, although I often use text regions to document the units of my variables and results. For example, I could write the answer is 200 watts. This brings us to the final point of this brief introduction to Mathcad. We have prepared other tutorials that you will study later on specific topics and calculations that are of interest to chemical engineers. But if you forget how to do something or want to learn about capabilities of Mathcad that we do not cover, you can always go to the Mathcad help menu and search topics of interest. You can also note that under the Mathcad help menu there's our Mathcad prepared tutorials to illustrate and teach various aspects of using Mathcad. Another important feature of the Mathcad help file are something called quick sheets that are actual Mathcad files that can be used to learn about various solving routines or how to do certain things in Mathcad, and these can be cut and pasted into active Mathcad files and reused and modified to solve your particular problem. This concludes the tutorial on getting started with Mathcad. Other tutorials on topics like solving an integral, solving simultaneous equations, making graphs, etc. can be found on the course website.